No firearm in history has enjoyed the fame or popularity of the assault rifle known as the AK-47, or Kalashnikov. Created by a Soviet weapons designer at the dawn of the Cold War, it was mass-produced and distributed worldwide in the millions, leading to its canonization in the revolutionary Third World of the 1950s and 1960s. Indeed, far beyond its utility, the AK-47 became a Cold War icon, appearing on revolutionary flags, in songs and poems, and in televised insurgencies as proof of communist fervor and supposed martial superiority. And it continues to play a major role in warfare today, most visibly in guerrilla conflicts in Africa and the Middle East. The AK-47 has succeeded so wildly because it's almost an ideal realization of the personal firearm. Where most weapons have had to contend with trade-offs between accuracy, lethality, speed of fire, reliability, cost of production, and ease of carrying and use, the AK-47 managed to find a sweet spot, maximizing these traits. In fact, the weapon is so reliable, effective, and easy to use by untrained operators that its advent made it widely possible for just about any group, even with little money, modern technology, or formal military training, to mount significant, deadly assaults against a much larger and more advanced force. A fact that has transformed the face of warfare and created a revolutionary romance that still surrounds the weapon. Kalashnikov, who benefited from the designs of earlier German and Russian prototypes, seemingly at last solved the 600-year-long dilemma of providing an accurate rifle that was not only capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute, but was still deadly at ranges of 300 to 400 yards and beyond. And at under 10 pounds, the AK-47 was easy to carry, simple to operate, and highly dependable. Moreover, by using the 7.62B bullet rather than the larger 40 caliber rounds, the AK-47 achieved a deadly muzzle velocity of over 2,300 feet per second. In short, Kalashnikov seemed to have squared the circle by creating a light, cheap, rapid-firing, accurate, reliable, and lethal weapon that was neither rifle nor submachine gun. The gun proved perfect for revolutionaries in third world countries, and the Kremlin would gleefully reward its new friends with mass deliveries of their wondrous weapon. The sudden ubiquity of the AK-47 stunned the United States and Europe, and seemed to turn the so-called First World's advantages in marksmanship and weapon craftsmanship on their heads. Illiterate insurgents, amply equipped with cheap AK-47s, now produced even more inexpensively by an array of Soviet satellite countries, suddenly had at their disposal more firepower than American soldiers. And what did it matter if Western riflemen were in theory better trained or shot a better calibrated and more accurate weapon, when mere teenagers in the tens of thousands could pepper Western troops with bullets? If a new American assault weapon were to follow in the Kalashnikov model, it would have to trump its Russian competitor with greater accuracy and lethality. This goal was seemingly accomplished with the M16 rifle, invented in the 1950s by the legendary arms designer Eugene Stoner. The sleek, black assault rifle employed plastic and aluminum alloys to reduce the weight to 2 pounds less than the rival AK-47. And it used even smaller ammunition, the 5.56 by 45mm high-velocity bullet that was to become the standard NATO round. The result was that, by all accounts, the M16 proved to be an exceptionally reliable and accurate assault rifle. Its smaller caliber bullet was in some ways as lethal as the AK-47's larger ammunition, as it had a muzzle velocity of over 3,000 feet per second, and the bullet tended to break up after penetrating flesh. The M16 also proved somewhat easier to handle and had less recoil than the AK-47, and soldiers could carry far more of the lighter weight ammunition. The ensuing shoot-off between the two weapons in the Vietnam War was supposed to make clear the American gun's advantages in rates of fire, accuracy, and lethality. But just the opposite proved to be true, at least in the first 4 years of the M16's wide use. Jamming was chronic, apparently due to initial design flaws in the gun, manufacturing problems with the gunpowder, and soldiers' frequent failure to clean the weapon regularly amid the humidity and dirt of the jungle. In contrast, the AK-47 seemed nearly indestructible, in part due to its simpler construction and greater tolerances. In Vietnam, at least, the verdict favored the notion of an uncomplicated assault rifle that compensated for lost accuracy by achieving greater reliability, simplicity of use, and a larger bullet. The AK-47 further exasperated Westerners by its cheap fabrication from stamped metals and its brilliant operation with just a few working parts. By the late 1960s, soldiers were taking apart, cleaning, and reassembling the weapon in about half the time required for the M16, something that felt and looked so cheap and that was produced by the communist bloc notorious for its shoddily manufactured products. Surely, it seemed, could not be comparable to a rifle designed by the Americans, the British, or the Germans, with their far more distinguished firearms pedigree. Yet, the communist bloc continued to meet world demand with millions of AK-47s. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, its former republics and clients often sought to unload their stockpiles at discounted prices. Ironically, the United States eventually became the largest purchaser of the AK-47 in its efforts to supply poorer allies, such as some areas of the former Yugoslavia, post-Saddam Iraq, and Afghanistan, with cheap, reliable assault rifles without its own large fingerprints on the arms sale. The result today is that some 75 million AK-47s have been produced, with most still in circulation, making it the most ubiquitous weapon in the history of firearms, dwarfing the M16's 8 million. So what in the end are we to make of the AK-47, given that people ultimately kill one another and design weapons that do it so effectively? A perfect storm of events explains the gun's lethal role in eroding civilization over the last 6 decades. The impoverished post-colonial world was eager for the sort of advanced weapons that had characterized a near century of endemic war in the more advanced West. And the Soviet Union was eager to fan liberationist movements against the West. It took the post-war glamour of international communism, the industrial muscle of the Soviet Union, and a Russian genius with no higher education but great practical savvy to at last provide millions with such parity, meeting the requirements of a new arms lethality at very little cost. The result was the tragedy of a global assault rifle that has been crucial to self-described liberationists in furthering so often the cause of tyranny.